Your Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, Ministre Kone, thank you pour être là pour le gouvernement de Côte d'Ivoire. Merci pour le soutien de la Côte d'Ivoire pour l'organisation de ce sommet. Merci beaucoup. Remy Rio, my dear brother, President of the International of the Financing Common itself, of course, also the President of the Agence Française de Développement. The Vice President of the European Investment Bank, Thomas, it's good to see you, co-convener of the Financing Common Summit. Presidents of multilateral development banks, presidents and director generals of public financial institutions, partners, delegates of the Finance in Common, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. The time has come for the closing ceremony of the Finance in Common Summit. From across the world we gathered, public financial institutions, public development banks, multilateral development banks, ministers, ministries of agriculture, finance, central bank governors for the Finance in Common Summit. And as we had just before I came up, huge participation from the youth and the civil society. Why did we gather? We gathered because we recognize that the challenges facing the world are immense, from climate to food crisis and conflict in Ukraine and its systemic effects around the world. These are all on top of the tapering effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, which are still with us. Today, the world is reeling from the effects of rising energy prices and global inflation. From all over the world, the cries are in different languages, but there's a commonality to them. People are suffering. People are unable to eat and to feed well. People cannot pay their energy costs. Disposable incomes are falling rapidly, and there are real risks of social and political unrests. Amid this, we do not have a choice but to be bold in pulling together. Addressing these challenges will require a lot of financing. We therefore must do better in cooperating, pooling resources, and deploying financing at scale. More than ever before, the role of public development banks and public financial institutions, which collectively deploy $2.3 trillion in annual lending per year, is very crucial. What did we hear, or what did I hear from several sessions I participated in at this summit? We heard of the importance of strong political will to address emerging global challenges. Leaders and governments need to respond to the needs of their populations and deploy resources to mitigate the effects of the global inflationary trends on purchasing power and indeed on the ability of people to service credit, which, if it worsens, could affect consumer lending and drive up non-performing loans. We heard that we need concrete actions to tackle climate change and the need to significantly ramp up climate finance across the board. As financial institutions, we should increase the share of our financing for climate and devote more resources, especially to climate adaptation, while developing new financial instruments that can attract private financing into adaptation. We should support developing countries which are disproportionately affected by climate change to access global climate finance and to ensure there is equity and fairness in access to global climate finance. That we should ensure that we close the infrastructure gap around the world, especially in developing countries, mindful of the need to green the infrastructure space. And in this regard, the Alliance for Green Infrastructure, which the African Development Bank and the European Investment Bank European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and the European Union Commission, the Agence Française de Développement, Africa 50, Rockefeller Foundation, and several partners are launching will be a game changer. We heard that we should invest a lot more in closing the health infrastructure gap and prepare the world to build better health preparedness, early warning systems, and revamp the health systems. If there is anything in Africa that we have learned from the COVID-19 pandemic, it is this: that Africa can no longer outsource the health of its 1.3 billion people to the benevolence of others. Africa must and will build health defense systems built on the pillars of quality healthcare infrastructure, pharmaceutical manufacturing, and manufacturing of vaccines. We heard that we must now accelerate more financing to support agriculture and food systems to tackle the effects of the war in Ukraine, which is down for now, but on the medium and long-term basis, to support a more robust, diversified, and resilient food and agricultural system, with a special focus on smallholder farmers, women, and the youth. We heard that we should expand financing to support the businesses of women and the youth. One area we discussed a lot is the establishment of the Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Banks in Africa to create new financial ecosystems around the businesses of the youth in Africa. Africa must put massive financial resources behind building youth-based wealth while creating jobs and fostering inclusive growth and prosperity today and into the future. We heard that the special drawing rights, the SDRs, of the International Monetary Fund should be better optimized by also providing these to the multilateral development banks. The African Development Bank, as I said earlier in my opening speech, as a prescribed holder of the SDRs, can leverage these SDRs for Africa by about up to 4 times. And as Remigio said, provide greater financing to support public development banks and financial institutions all across Africa. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as we look towards COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, our focus should be on collectively ensuring that developing countries, especially very vulnerable countries in Africa, get the resources that they need to adapt to climate change and to support just energy transitions. Achieving net zero cannot be done with zero financing. We must do more to leverage the massive pools of capital that exist in the private sector and make sure that we do not leave the small and medium-sized enterprises behind. There is no doubt in my mind that we have lots to do. Between governments, private sector, and the global financial architecture, which includes, of course, all of us and that are here and those joined also from around the world virtually. The finance in common, the hand around the baobab tree. As we leave Abidjan, let us keep our determination strong. The world needs actions, not words. Let us turn our ideas into commitments, strong commitments. But let's turn those strong commitments into actions. I would like to thank you all for coming to Abidjan for these reflections. Thank you for the exciting agenda of the past 2 days and 3 days for some of you. Thank you, merci beaucoup, to the government of Côte d'Ivoire for their wonderful hospitality. Thank you to all the staff of the European Investment Bank and to my staff at the African Development Bank who worked so hard to make this summit a success. Thank you and special thanks to the interpreters who work so hard so that we can understand what we're saying. Please thank them, they work hard. Thank you to the security and the protocol folks that make sure we can get from one place to the other. And of course, You know, I'm president of the bank who likes dancing. Thank you to the musicians who gave us some break on the floor when I watched Remy Rio and Minister Inali Kaba on the floor yesterday. I say, yes, finance in common also means dancing in common. As we now turn our eyes to finance in common for 2023, I would like to wish the Latin American Association of Development Financing Institutions and the Inter-American Development Bank all the very best of success. We look forward to joining you there. Finally, to my dear friend Remy Rio and all your staff at the Agence Française de Développement, and of course all the wonderful staff at the Finance in Common Secretariat, thank you for your excellent work. Donc, ça reste simplement pour moi de vous dire, je vous souhaite un excellent voyage. Nous voulons que vous restiez ici. Je sais que bon, le gouvernement de la Côte d'Ivoire, ils ont beaucoup de choses à vous offrir au niveau du tourisme. Donc, s'il vous plaît, restez ici. Donnez l'économie ivoirienne, il faut faire marcher un peu avec le tourisme. Thank you very much. Safe journeys. God bless et au revoir.